Hi, I'm sorry that Jenny Raggett wasn't able to make it, but I'm Joey Talbot from the Foundation for Integrated Transport. I'm working on the project Transport for New Homes. We've got a housing crisis at the moment. There's a desperate need for more affordable homes, and we need new houses to be built. And we look at promotional materials for new developments, and you see some wonderful words: sustainable, vibrant, natural. But what kind of places are we actually building in practice? So we went to have a look, and we visited around 20 different developments around the country. So we've got urban extensions, we've got new settlements, we've got urban regeneration schemes. And we went to photograph the sites, talk to some local residents, and have a look at where the nearest shops, cafes, doctors' surgeries, schools are, and just see how they match up to what was promised. So here's what we've found. Essentially, parking and road access is very dominant in shaping the places. So it often comprises 30 to 40% of the land area. And where amenities and employment do exist, they are often very car-based as well. So, for example, you have large supermarkets and a very limited lack of smaller independent shops. Public transport can be very limited. Very few places with any kind of rapid transit system or within walking distance of a train station. In one site, there was no public transport at all. And so there's not many destinations to walk to, and the developer contributions are often channeled into new roads. So even when sites are in good locations, there's often a lack of connectivity. So you have the red line, which determines the boundary of the area with developer control. And beyond that boundary, that often acts as a barrier. So you might have some brilliant cycle provision within it, but then to get from there to the town centre, it can be very difficult. Just to give you a bit of an idea about these photos, for example, on the top left over there, this is a development where the walking or cycling route to the local shops was through a kind of green space that was left, and it would be great for walking the dog, that kind of recreational walking, but as an everyday route, people just didn't feel safe using it. So people we spoke to ended up walking along this road, which is not brilliant. And then the other photos with the car parks. At the back of the car park, below, you might see a Sainsbury's supermarket and a couple of small shops attached to the side of it. So that, along with the pub in the photo above, comprises the local centre in an urban village of over 2,000 homes, plus a primary school and a park, and that's it at the moment. And sites with the best walkability in public transport, then such as in more urban locations, they tend to be rather less affordable. So this is the default. We end up with places which have brilliant road access, often supermarkets, motorway junctions, but there's not much public transport, and there's not really anywhere to walk or cycle to. Some places did seem better, and for example, Poundbury actually seemed quite good. We're not talking here about the architecture. People have mixed opinions on that, but again, that's not what we're focusing on at the moment. But what was really important there was that it was mixed use. So you had residential areas, and then you had lots of shops and cafes. In the town centre there was a garden centre, there was a small supermarket with pubs and shops nearby, and there was lots of employment. So they built the factories first, and they now have 2,000 jobs in Poundbury, which means people come there to work, and there's good public transport and ability to walk between there and Dorchester, the local town. So, what's going wrong? Well, we've got the strategic housing market assessments, which determine the number of homes that each local authority needs to build. Targets are set without really taking geography into account. So, what we have is they're based to a large degree on past demographic trends. And if there's been housing in an area, then the demographic trend is rising, and so there will be targets for more housing within the same area. And we really don't have consideration of public transport routes, of sustainable locations, of places where it will be good for the economy to grow. And so we have a kind of distributed model of houses in lots of areas and not in a way that's easy to serve by public transport, or in areas where it's possible to walk and cycle to local places. We also had a look at the Netherlands, and what we found there was very different. So in the Netherlands, you have a whole kind of system of spatial planning at 3 levels, from the national government to the regions and at the local level. And you have zoning, so the zoning determines where houses can be built, and within that you also have this sustainable urbanisation procedure, ensuring that if a need is identified for new residential, industrial or other development, first of all they look for places within the existing urban area, then they would look for places that have access to the public transport network. There's multidisciplinary teams planning the new homes, and deciding, for instance, where houses are built, what form and what uses the building should have, even the number of stories. And in terms of finance, it's rather easier there than it is in Britain, in England especially, where finance is really difficult in terms of getting good public realm and good transport connectivity. So, for example, there is a state investment bank that funds housing associations and municipalities. There's also strong compulsory purchase powers that allow the uplift in land value when planning permission is granted to be used for community benefit. And the results, you see towns built around thriving town centres, built with cycling and walking in mind. Here you see the cycle network in this new town, the market square in the middle. This is the train station, which is right in the middle of town, with a bike hub, a really large bike hub, immediately underneath the train station. And it's just totally different to anything in Britain. So, in summary, geographical factors are being ignored at the moment when we're setting housing targets. And we have locations for new homes chosen with no real strategy for modal shift away from cars and towards public transport, walking and cycling. And so what this means is a lot of it also relates to the fact that funding is very uncertain, and it's very difficult to design new residential areas around good quality rapid transit, new stations, because it's just so uncertain whether that new station will ever be built. That, at the same time, restricts investment in community services, amenities, and the public realm. So this risks promoting all kinds of things like physical inactivity, air pollution, congestion, carbon emissions, and social exclusion. But we have seen that where we have mixed-use developments, that is a much better approach in terms of creating real places that people spend time in and want to actually be in. And we could learn a lot from what's going on in the Netherlands and elsewhere in Europe.